was clear that US submarines were already on combat duty anyway. He also said Moscow had no desire to get into a polemic with Trump on the issue. This comes after Trump had said that he had ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in what he called were the appropriate regions in response to remarks from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev about the risk of war between the nuclear-armed adversaries. Well, thank you, Keith, for staying with us. The Kremlin saying that people, and specifically the US here, around nuclear rhetoric need to be very, very careful. Do you think this is just rhetoric itself from Russia?
I think there's rhetoric on all parts. I think this is going to be a rhetoric war as far as these submarines are concerned. Medvedev is the close friend of Vladimir Putin. He stepped down from the presidency to allow President Putin to return to the presidency in those days when you couldn't stay forever, though the constitution was subsequently changed. So this is, though he's semi-detached, of course, he's deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia, a very, very important position. He is basically saying what the Kremlin believes, that there's no point in doing all this because it doesn't frighten us. You're not going to poke the bear. This is not a game of risk monopoly. This is a move that they were going to make anyway. So I think we should take these statements by the former Russian president very seriously. And in the classic phrase of some of our great comedians, look at my face, am I bothered? That's basically what he's saying. I'm not bothered about this, so you can move your submarines wherever you want. They were going to be there anyway. It's not going to affect us. We're just going to carry on and doing what you're doing. I go back to what I said before. This kind of phony rhetoric that's going on is not helpful. I mean, it's great for NewsX and for people like me and others who are interested in international diplomacy. But for the peace of the world, it doesn't really help because it only takes one mistake for one of these countries to make for it all to go horribly wrong. So
yes.
Much better
yes,
to
Keith,
stand back.
Sorry to interject. I just want to build on that specific point because we've spoken about almost a war of rhetoric which has been at play for months amidst, of course, heavy fighting on the front line and heavy airstrikes from both Russia and Ukraine. But do you see a shift happening here for geopolitics and the potential global situation surrounding peace? There are so many pockets of global conflict which involve allied nations on one side and the other. How close do you think this is to really blowing up into a Cold War-like situation?
Well, only if they're talking about a hot war, of course, in terms of nuclear activity. The Cold War, I don't think that Trump does Cold War. I think he is very keen to shake hands, as he's done with the leader of North Korea. He's keen for the media to own the media cycle. He gets frightened, or not frightened necessarily, he gets pushed back when you deal with countries like India, like he's just done, and said, here are the tariffs on India. Prime Minister Modi says, well, you can do that, but we don't want your fighter jets. We're going to buy them somewhere else. So the way to stand up to a bully is to show that you have other options and that you're not particularly willing to engage. I think that's the problem that Trump has. His position changes all the time, every day, every news cycle. So it's difficult for people to quite understand what he's doing and where he's going. But that makes him so special. Remember, he's not a politician. He is a businessman who has become president of the United States. He is a salesman. And one should kind of accept the fact that as a salesman, he is doing what he was elected to do. He is doing this because millions of people voted for him to take this kind of line. Whether they expected him to go further or as further as he's done, I'm not sure. We'll know on November the 5th next year when the elections take place, whether or not the American people wanted him to go that far. But this is what they elected him to do. They didn't elect a politician like Kamala Harris. They elected a businessman who shoots from the hip and talks straight. But, as we know, Donald Trump likes talking.
Keith, Vaz, as always, an absolute pleasure to have you on the programme, providing that information and insight. Of course, a lot of questions still to be answered.